Ambassador Reed stood at the massive window of his ship, watching Earth grow larger in the view. The blue planet looked peaceful from space, showing no signs of the headache it was about to cause the Galactic Council. His long fingers tapped nervously on the crystalline surface of his datapad. "Ambassador, we're receiving clearance to enter Earth's orbit," his aide announced from behind. "Their space traffic control is very efficient." Reed nodded slowly. That was the problem. Humanity was proving far too efficient, far too quickly. Just last month, they had successfully tested their first faster-than-light drive. The Council's predictions had given them at least another century before achieving this milestone. Now everything was off schedule. The landing went smoothly. Another surprise. The spaceport in Geneva showed signs of regular traffic, with vessels of various sizes coming and going in orderly patterns. Reed had expected something more primitive, more chaotic. His ship, though larger and more advanced, didn't stand out as much as it should have. Inside the United Earth Government building, Reed prepared his standard welcome speech. He had delivered it 42 times before, to 42 different species. Every time, it had been received with awe, gratitude, and immediate acceptance of Council membership. The Council chamber of the UEG was packed. Representatives from every major nation sat in tiered rows, watching him with expressions he couldn't quite read. At their center sat Director Wells, her face a mask of polite attention. "Honored representatives of Earth," Reed began, his universal translator ensuring perfect communication. "I come bearing greetings from the Galactic Council, the unified governing body of over 40 sapient species. We have watched humanity's progress with great interest." He continued his carefully crafted speech, explaining the benefits of Council membership: access to advanced technologies, protection from cosmic threats, trade opportunities, cultural exchange. The same package that had amazed and delighted so many other species. When he finished, he waited for the usual applause, the excited murmuring, the eager questions about membership procedures. Instead, there was silence. Director Wells leaned forward slightly. "Ambassador Reed, we appreciate the Council's offer. We have carefully reviewed the membership terms you sent ahead. Our answer is no." Reed blinked rapidly. His translator must have malfunctioned. "I apologize, Director. Perhaps there was an error in translation. You're declining Council membership." "That is correct." Wells's voice remained perfectly calm. "Earth will maintain diplomatic relations with the Council, but we choose to remain independent." But the benefits." Reed's carefully practiced poise cracked slightly. "The technology alone." "We've seen the technology levels of various Council members, Ambassador." Wells gestured to a holographic display that sprang to life beside her. It showed detailed scans of various Council ships, including Reed's own. "Your technological advancement hasn't matched your civilization's age. We believe we can progress faster on our own." Reed felt a chill run down his spine. These scans were incredibly detailed. How had they? Furthermore, Wells continued, "We have concerns about the Council's approach to governance. Our analysts have found patterns in the development of member species that suggest, let's call it guided evolution." The blood drained from Reed's face. In all his years of diplomatic service, he had never faced such a situation. No species had ever rejected Council membership. None had ever seen through the carefully maintained facade of benevolent guidance. "This meeting is concluded," Wells announced, standing. "You'll find detailed documents explaining our position in your ship's computer. We look forward to establishing diplomatic relations on equal terms." Reed walked back to his ship in a daze. His aide was already preparing their departure, sensing the urgency in his superior's manner. As they broke orbit, Reed stared at Earth again. The peaceful blue sphere now seemed threatening somehow. He had to warn the Council. Humanity wasn't following the script. They weren't grateful, weren't awed, weren't pliable. They were dangerous. What terrified him most wasn't their rejection. It was the certainty that they knew exactly what they were doing. Somewhere along the way, humanity had gotten ahead of the Council's carefully laid plans. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic Council would have to deal with something completely unexpected. A species that said no. Admiral Thomas walked through the silent halls of the Mars Research Base, his footsteps echoing off the metal walls. Behind him, a team of scientists hurried to keep up, their tablets clutched tightly in nervous hands. "Show me again," he ordered, stopping at the massive blast doors that led to their newest discovery. Dr. Walker, the head archaeologist, stepped forward. The ruins were hidden 200 meters below the surface. We found them while expanding the base's lower levels. She pressed her hand against the scanner, and the doors slid open with a soft hiss. The chamber beyond was enormous, carved from the red Martian rock. But it wasn't the size that made Admiral Thomas's jaw tighten. It was what filled it. A massive ship lay before them, its ancient hull still gleaming despite being buried for thousands of years. Its design was immediately familiar to everyone present. It matched the vessels of the Galactic Council perfectly. Carbon dating puts it at roughly 12,000 years old. Dr. Walker continued, her voice steady despite the gravity of their discovery. The markings match what Ambassador Reed showed us in their historical records, but they claimed they'd only discovered Earth 50 years ago. Thomas walked closer to the ship, his reflection distorted in its metallic surface. "They've been watching us, guiding us, probably since we first picked up a stone as a tool." He turned to face his team. "And they're still lying about it." Back in his office aboard the Mars base, Thomas reviewed the data they'd gathered over the past month. The evidence was overwhelming. The Council hadn't just found Earth. They'd been manipulating humanity's development for millennia. His computer chimed with an incoming priority message. Director Wells's face appeared on the screen, looking grimmer than usual. "Admiral, we've decoded more of the Council's restricted transmissions," she said without preamble. "It's worse than we thought. Every member species was guided along a specific path. Technology, culture, even their physical development, all carefully controlled to ensure they'd remain dependent on the Council." Thomas leaned back in his chair, processing this information. "And now they want to do the same to us." "Exactly. But they didn't count on us finding the ship, or on us developing FTL travel a century ahead of their schedule." Wells allowed herself a small smile. "We've backed them into a corner, and they don't even know it yet." "What about the other species?" Thomas asked. "The newer Council members. Most don't know they're being controlled. The Council presents itself as a benevolent guide, helping younger races develop. But their help comes with hidden strings." Thomas stood and walked to his window, looking out at the red Martian landscape. "And that's why we said no." "That's why we said no," Wells confirmed. "But we need to be ready. The Council won't take rejection well. They've never had to deal with it before." Thomas nodded, his mind already working on plans. "I'll accelerate the expansion of our Space Force. We've reversed engineered enough of their technology to hold our own if it comes to that." "Let's hope it doesn't," Wells said. "But if it does," she left the sentence hanging. "If it does, we'll show them why freedom is worth fighting for," Thomas finished. After the call ended, Thomas looked at the latest reports from Earth's colony ships. They were already establishing bases in nearby star systems, moving faster than the Council thought possible. Humanity wasn't playing by their rules anymore. Let them panic, he thought. Let them worry. For the first time in their history, the Galactic Council was dealing with a species that had caught them in their own game. And humanity was just getting started. The great chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so loud. Council President Marcus stood at the center platform, watching chaos unfold around him. Representatives from 40 different species shouted over each other, their universal translators struggling to keep up with the overlapping voices. "Order." Marcus's voice boomed through the chamber's amplification system. "We will have order." The noise died down slowly, replaced by a tense silence. Ambassador Reed stood at the speaker's position, his report on the Earth situation still hovering in holographic display behind him. "This is unprecedented," said Representative Jones of the Proxima colonies, one of the younger council members. "How can they simply refuse?" "They can't refuse," snapped an elder member from the upper tiers. "Membership is mandatory for developing civilizations. It's been our way for 10,000 years." Marcus raised his hand for silence as the chamber threatened to erupt again. "Technically," he said carefully, "there is no law requiring membership. We've never needed one before." Reed stepped forward again. "There's more," he said, his voice heavy. "They know about the guidance protocols. Somehow, they discovered one of our observation posts on their fourth planet." The chamber exploded into chaos again. Marcus felt a headache building behind his eyes. 10,000 years of careful planning and control, threatened by one stubborn species. "How did they advance so quickly?" demanded Representative Jones. "Their FTL development was supposed to take another century." An aide rushed to Marcus's platform, handing him a data crystal. He plugged it into his console, and his face paled as he read the report. "We have a bigger problem," Marcus announced, his voice cutting through the noise. 3 of our younger member species have formally requested to review their membership terms." The silence that followed was deafening. "They can't do that," whispered an elder member, but there was fear in his voice now. "The treaties are binding. Earth's rejection is inspiring others," Reed said. "They're questioning everything. The guidance protocols, the technology restrictions, the resource quotas." In the upper tiers, the eldest members of the council huddled together, their private communications channel buzzing with urgent messages. They had maintained control for millennia by carefully managing the development of younger species. Now that control was slipping. "We should send the fleet," suggested a military commander from his observation post. "Show them the consequence of rejection and risk open rebellion." Jones shot back. "If Earth truly has advanced beyond our expectations, we could be starting a war we're not ready for." Marcus studied the reports flooding his console. Earth's colonies were expanding rapidly, using technology that shouldn't have been possible for their development level. Their ships were appearing in systems that the Council had marked for future development. They were moving faster than anyone had thought possible. "We need to contain this," Marcus decided. "Representative Jones, speak with the younger members. Remind them of the benefits they receive from Council membership." "And Earth?" Reed asked. Marcus stared at the holographic display of the blue planet. "Monitor them closely. If they make one wrong move, we'll have our excuse to act." As the chamber slowly emptied, Marcus remained at his platform, watching the chaos he'd witnessed replay in his mind. For the first time in his political career, he felt genuine fear. The carefully maintained order of the galaxy was showing cracks, and it had taken only one species, one single act of defiance, to start it all. In the privacy of his chamber, he opened a secure channel to the Council's military command. "Begin moving ships into position near Earth's expansion zones," he ordered, quietly. The humans had started this crisis. One way or another, the Council would end it. Admiral Thomas stood on the bridge of the Earth's newest starship, the Defiant, watching his crew track the movements of Council vessels. The massive holographic display showed red dots representing Council ships, clustering at the edges of human space. "They're not even trying to hide anymore," his first officer commented, pointing to a new cluster forming near the Alpha Centauri colony. "They want us to see them," Thomas replied, his eyes fixed on the display. "It's a show of force." An alert flashed on his personal screen. The message was from one of their stealth probes, hidden in what the Council thought was secure space. Thomas read it twice, his expression hardening. "Send this to Director Wells immediately," he ordered. "The Council's doing more than just watching us." Across the galaxy, in the Proxima system, Representative Jones stood before his planet's leadership council. His hand shook as he presented evidence of Council manipulation spanning centuries. "The humans were right," he announced to the stunned assembly. "Every technological advancement we thought we made independently was carefully planned. Every resource quota, every trade agreement, all designed to keep us dependent. The chamber erupted in angry shouts. Jones watched as decades of loyalty to the Council crumbled in minutes. Back in the Council chambers, President Marcus faced a growing storm. The Proxima system had formally demanded renegotiation of their membership terms. 3 other young member species had joined them. "This is the humans' doing," an elder member raged. "They're spreading dissent. They're spreading truth," Representative Jones corrected, his voice firm despite the hostile glares from the elder tiers. "And they've offered to share their FTL technology with us, without restrictions." Marcus slammed his hand on his console. "That technology is not approved for their development level. They can't simply." "They already have," Jones interrupted. "And they've achieved in decades what you told us would take centuries. The question is, why did you lie to us?" In Earth's Orbital Command Center, Director Wells reviewed the latest intelligence reports. Council military vessels were moving into position around multiple human colonies. Their stealth wasn't nearly as good as they believed. Every movement was tracked, every communication intercepted. "They're preparing for military action," Thomas reported via secure channel. "But they're divided. The younger species are resisting the Council's authority." Wells nodded, studying the data. "How many?" 7 species now, with more showing signs of doubt. "The Council's control is slipping." A new alert flashed across their screens. Wells read it, her face growing serious. "They're deploying their newest warships," she announced. "Top-tier technology they've never shared with their members. They're preparing for more than just a show of force." Thomas's expression remained calm. "We're ready. Our ships are in position, and our allies are watching. The moment they act against us, their secrets go public. Every suppressed technology, every manipulated development, every hidden observation post. All of it. And if they call our bluff..." Thomas allowed himself a small smile. "Who's bluffing?" In the darkness of space, ships moved like pieces on a cosmic chessboard. Council vessels, their crews nervous and uncertain, faced human ships that shouldn't have existed yet. Behind them all, the younger Council species watched and waited, their own loyalties hanging by a thread. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for someone to make the first move. It wouldn't have to wait long. The colony ship Hope carried 800 settlers toward their new home in the Ta-CD system. Captain Rogers watched his crew manage their approach, unaware that they were about to change galactic history. "Sir," his sensor officer called out. "Council warship decloaking dead ahead." The massive vessel appeared from nowhere, its weapons already charged. The automated warning came through all channels. "You are entering restricted space. Turn back immediately." Rogers kept his voice steady as he replied. "This is a registered colony ship on a planned route. We filed our flight path with all authorities." The Council ship's response came in the form of an energy blast that struck just ahead of the Hope's bow. A warning shot. On the bridge of the Defiant, Admiral Thomas watched the situation unfold through their stealth feeds. His hand hovered over the command console. "They're powering up for another shot," his tactical officer reported. Thomas pressed the button. Across the sector, 20 human ships dropped their cloaks, surrounding the Council vessel. They had been waiting for exactly this moment. "Council vessel," Thomas's voice cut through all frequencies. "Power down your weapons or be destroyed." In the Council chambers, the emergency alarms blared. President Marcus watched in horror as the tactical display showed the true situation. Human ships had been shadowing every Council vessel, completely undetected. "Impossible," an elder member whispered. "Their technology can't be this advanced." Representative Jones stood up from his seat. "Or perhaps you've been lying about your own capabilities all along." He turned to address the chamber. "How many other secrets have you kept from us?" The Council warship's commander, caught between his orders and sudden destruction, made his choice. He fired again, this time directly at the colony ship. The shot never landed. A human vessel intercepted it with an energy shield that shouldn't have existed for centuries. Thomas's voice came through again, now broadcasting to every ship and station in range. This attack on a civilian vessel has been recorded and transmitted across all frequencies. Along with it, we are releasing proof of Council manipulation spanning thousands of years. In the Council chambers, screens lit up everywhere. Data streamed across them. Secret archives, hidden protocols, suppressed technologies. Everything. "Stop this transmission," Marcus shouted, but it was too late. Back at the confrontation point, the Council warship found itself completely disabled by weapons it had never seen before. A team from the Defiant boarded it, discovering proof of what they had suspected. The attack had been planned. Director Wells appeared on all channels, her voice calm but firm. "To all species under Council control, you have been lied to. The proof is now in your hands. The technology you were told was centuries away. It was kept from you. The resources you were told were scarce. They were stockpiled. The independence you were promised, it was never meant to be given." In system after system, younger species watched the evidence pour in. Ships that had been loyal to the Council suddenly found themselves questioning everything. Representative Jones stood in the Council chamber, now addressing not just the members present, but every species watching the transmission. The humans didn't just reject Council membership, they exposed the truth. Now we all have a choice to make. The Council elders sat in stunned silence as their carefully maintained system of control crumbled around them. 10,000 years of manipulation laid bare in a single day. The spark had been lit. Now the galaxy would burn. The next 48 hours changed the face of galactic civilization forever. President Marcus watched helplessly as his view screen showed one system after another declaring independence from Council control. "The Proxima fleet has turned," an aide reported, his voice shaking. "They're refusing orders from Council command." "The Centauri systems too," another added. "And the Sirius colonies. We're losing control of the entire sector." Marcus slumped in his chair as more reports flooded in. The Council's mighty warships, spread across the galaxy to intimidate humanity, now found themselves surrounded by their own member species vessels. In the Council chambers, Ambassador Reed walked slowly to the central platform. The room fell silent. Everyone knew where he had just returned from. "Earth has sent terms," he announced, his voice echoing in the quiet chamber. "Not for their membership, but for the Council's surrender." "Surrender?" An elder member spat. "To them." "To everyone," Reed corrected. "The humans aren't demanding control. They're demanding freedom. For all species." Representative Jones stood up, addressing the chamber. 7 more systems have declared independence in the last hour. Our own military vessels are standing down or joining the rebellion. The choice isn't whether to surrender anymore. It's whether to do it gracefully or be forced. On the bridge of the Defiant, Admiral Thomas coordinated with the growing fleet of liberated ships. Vessels that had once served the Council now flew new colors, their crews finally free to choose their own path. Another Council storage facility found. His communications officer reported. "The Proxima ships are securing it now. More suppressed technology, just like the others." Thomas nodded. "Share everything with our new allies. No more secrets, no more control." A flash of light caught his attention. On the main viewer, a Council battleship tried to make a run for restricted space. It was quickly surrounded by ships from 3 different species, working together with practiced ease. In her command center, Director Wells met with representatives from 20 former Council species. The room buzzed with energy as centuries of forced cooperation transformed into genuine alliance. "The humans knew," one representative said, still processing the truth. "You knew what the Council was doing, and instead of using it to gain power, you exposed it." Wells smiled. "Power wasn't what we wanted. Freedom was." The door opened, and Ambassador Reed walked in. The room fell silent. "The Council's military command has surrendered," he announced. "The elder members are being detained. President Marcus," he paused, "has chosen to end his own life rather than face justice." Nobody spoke for a moment, letting the weight of history sink in. "What happens now?" Someone finally asked. Now, Wells said, standing, we build something new, something better. Not a council that controls, but an alliance that cooperates. Not enforced peace, but chosen unity. Admiral Thomas's voice came through the room's speakers. The last council holdouts have surrendered. The restricted zones are being opened. All the hidden technology, all the suppressed knowledge, it's all being made available to everyone. Beyond the windows of the command center, ships of various designs moved in harmony, their crews working together not because they were forced to, but because they chose to. Representative Jones stepped forward. 10,000 years of control ended in 2 days because one species dared to say no. Not just no, Wells corrected. We said something better was possible. And now we get to prove it. 1 year after the fall of the Galactic Council, the Great Chamber looked very different. Gone were the tiered seats that had placed elder species above younger ones. Now all representatives sat in a circular arrangement, symbolizing their equality. Admiral Thomas stood at the center, addressing the first assembly of the new Galactic Alliance. Behind him, the screen showed hundreds of colony ships spreading across the galaxy, no longer restricted by artificial boundaries. In 1 year, he began, we've accomplished what the Council claimed would take centuries. Not because we're special, but because we're free. The chamber, once filled with fear and suspicion, now hummed with energy and purpose. Representatives from 43 species, including several that the Council had marked as not ready for contact, participated in open discussion. In her office overlooking the chamber, Director Wells met with Ambassador Reed, who had become one of their strongest allies in building the new order. The last of the Council's secret facilities has been opened, Reed reported, placing a data crystal on her desk. The amount of suppressed knowledge they held, it's staggering. Wells picked up the crystal, thinking of all the progress that had been denied to so many species for so long. And now it belongs to everyone. On the main floor, Representative Jones was presenting the final draft of the Alliance Charter to the Assembly. Our fundamental principle is simple. Every species develops at its own pace, makes its own choices, and contributes in its own way. The screens behind him showed the results of their first year of freedom. New colonies flourishing with previously restricted technology, trade routes flowing freely between all systems, species that had been kept apart by Council decree now working together, combining their unique strengths. The Council's greatest fear, Jones continued, was that chaos would reign without their control. Instead, we found something remarkable. Genuine cooperation is more powerful than forced compliance. In orbit above, the combined fleet of the Alliance conducted joint exercises. Ships of different species, once restricted to specific roles by Council decree, now shared all their capabilities openly. The Proxima ship's advanced sensors combined perfectly with human FTL drives and Centaurian shield technology. Thomas looked up at the fleet display with pride. A year ago, those ships were pointing weapons at each other because they were ordered to. Reed added, now they choose to work together. The Assembly turned their attention to the final vote. The Charter would establish the new principles that would guide their civilization. Freedom of development, open sharing of knowledge, mutual defense, and absolute prohibition of species manipulation. Wells stood to cast Earth's vote, but paused to look around the chamber. She saw former Council enforcers sitting next to species they had once suppressed, all working together to build something new. The Council thought control was necessary for peace, she said. They were wrong. Real peace comes from respect, from trust, and from the freedom to choose one's own path. The vote was unanimous. As cheers filled the chamber, Thomas received a message from the exploration fleet. They had found another developing civilization, one that would soon achieve spaceflight. What do we do? His aide asked. Do we contact them? Thomas smiled. We watch, we wait, and when they're ready, we offer them a choice. Not demands, not control, but a genuine choice to join us as equals. In the galaxy beyond, a new era had begun. Humanity's simple act of saying no had transformed 10,000 years of control into something unprecedented. A civilization built on freedom, choice, and true cooperation. The Council's greatest fear had become reality, and it was more beautiful than anyone had imagined.